Pivot points store the transforms. If I rotate this table, you'll observe that there's a value now in the Z text box down here. And this is only displayed if we're in absolute mode. This button is up. If this button is down, we're in offset mode, and all the transform type-ins will read with zeros. That's a relative mode. We want the absolute mode so we can read the actual values stored in the transform. So I've rotated this table about 42 degrees in the z-axis. Over here on the hierarchy panel, there's an area called Reset, and we can reset either the transform, more specifically that means the rotation in this case, and or the scale. Let's do one at a time. If I reset the transform, watch what happens. The value that was in here disappears, and now it reads as a 0. So minus 42 point whatever is the new 0. If I rotate this table again, it will start to accrue values. But notice that if I rotate it and just eyeball it towards the grid, that I'm off. This should say something like minus 90 or so, and right now it says minus 49. That's because I reset the transform. If I set this to 0 by right-clicking on the spinner, the table only rotates to that orientation. Likewise, you can reset the scale, and it's generally a really bad idea to scale objects, and I'll get into the reasons for that later. But just to break my rule, I will scale this object, and I scaled it down to about 61% or so. And now I will reset the scale, and miraculously we're back to 100%. So this is kind of a way of cheating in a sense, where you can resize the object and just call it 100% all of a sudden. And so this is important to know. It's sort of an advanced feature, and you shouldn't play around with it if you're not quite sure what it does. There's a couple of odds and ends here that I didn't talk about. There's hierarchy, and that has to do with linked objects like an armature, like maybe a desk lamp, or perhaps a character like a biped. And so this is more of an advanced feature where you can affect the hierarchy only. And we covered everything in alignment. You can reset the pivot, and what that does is it moves the pivot point back to its location that it had when the object was created. And in this case, it moved it right on top of the tabletop. There's also another toggle here, Don't Affect Children, and this again has to do with hierarchies of linked objects.